You think you know people. You really, truly think you know your own family. You believe that when everything completely falls apart, they'll be the ones to help you pick up the pieces. I mean, that's what family is for, isn't it? At least, that's what I believed. For years, I was the reliable one. The one everyone called when they were in a jam. The good son, the helpful brother. I built my life on being dependable. And then, one afternoon, my career just vanished. And apparently, so did my worth to the people who were supposed to love me no matter what. They didn't just turn their backs on me, they acted like I never existed. But the silence, that abandonment, that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part came 2 years later, when they reappeared. Not with apologies, but with a sense of entitlement and a shocking demand that forced me to make a call I never thought I'd have to make in my wildest nightmares. Imagine coming home to find your entire family, the same family that ghosted you when you had absolutely nothing, casually measuring your living room for their own furniture. They hadn't spoken to you in 2 years, but there they were, acting like they owned the place. They didn't see a person who had clawed his way back from the bottom. They saw an opportunity. They saw a house. And they honestly believed it was theirs for the taking. They told me I owed them. They said it was my duty. They were wrong. And they were about to find out just how wrong they were. Before my life imploded, things were stable. Predictable, even. I had a decent job in tech, nothing glamorous, but it paid well. It paid well enough for me to buy a small, modest house in a quiet neighborhood. That place was my pride and joy. The one real symbol that I'd made it, at least in my own eyes. More than that, my job let me be the person my family expected me to be, their safety net. My family was, I guess you'd call it, traditional. My parents were hardworking, blue-collar folks who believed in pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, but also in the unbreakable bond of family. I have two older siblings, my brother, Mark, and my sister, Chloe. I was the youngest, but somehow, I ended up the most financially stable. Mark was a dreamer, always chasing some next big thing that never really worked out. Chloe married young and was a stay-at-home mom with 2 kids, and they were always struggling to make ends meet. And then there was me. The reliable one. When Mark needed a few $1,000s for a sure thing, I'd lend it to him, knowing deep down I'd never see it again. When Chloe's car broke down and she couldn't afford the fix, I paid for it. I picked up the tab at countless family dinners, bought the nice Christmas presents, and never, ever complained. I loved them. I thought this is what you do for family. You support each other. I saw myself as their floor. If they fell, I'd be there to catch them. The problem was, I never realized that floor was made of glass, and it was only designed to hold them, not me. I was the emotional support, too. I was the guy expected to handle all the stress. I was the mediator in my parents' fights, the shoulder for my sister to cry on about her marriage, the cheerleader for my brother's latest failed idea. It felt like I was allowed to be the adult, to carry their burdens, but only when it was convenient for them. It was a role I just accepted, because I thought that's what love was. The day I lost my job was completely surreal. It was a Tuesday. The air in the office was thick with corporate buzzwords, restructuring, redundancies. All it really meant was that my keycard stopped working and my career was now sitting in a cardboard box. I was 34 years old, and for the first time since I was a teenager, I was unemployed. The shame felt like a physical weight. I just sat in my car in the parking lot for an hour, staring at nothing. My first instinct, my first desperate need, was to call my family. I called my mom first. She sounded distracted. I stumbled through the words, "Mom. I lost my job." There was a pause. Not a comforting one. It was a calculating pause. Then she just said, "Oh. Well, these things happen. You're a smart boy, you'll figure it out." Figure it out. Not, "How are you?" Not, "What do you need?" Not, "Come over for dinner." It was a dismissal. A gentle push away. She ended the call fast, saying she had something on the stove. I tried my dad next. He was more blunt. Tough break, son. The world's not a forgiving place. Should have had a backup plan. It felt like a lecture, not a hug. Then, I called Mark, the guy I'd helped the most. Surely, he'd get it. His response? A nervous laugh. Wow, man, that's rough. Hey, listen, I'm in the middle of something, can I call you back? He never did. Chloe was the final gut punch. I texted her, and I could see the three little dots appear and disappear for about 10 minutes before a cold, sterile reply finally popped up. So sorry to hear that. Praying for you. That was it. In the days that followed, the silence just got louder. My follow-up calls went straight to voicemail. My texts were left on read. The invitations to Sunday dinners just stopped. It was like a switch had been flipped. The second I was no longer the provider, the safety net, I became invisible. I wasn't a son or a brother anymore, I was a problem. A burden they weren't willing to deal with. The stress of being unemployed is one thing. But the emotional abandonment from your own family, that is a special kind of pain. It drills down into your deepest fears of being worthless, of being unlovable. I felt like a failure, and their silence was all the confirmation I needed. The next 2 years were the hardest of my life. The shock wore off and was replaced by a creeping, gnawing depression. The loneliness was suffocating. Some days, I couldn't even get out of bed. I'd look in the mirror and not recognize the person staring back. My self-esteem, which I'd stupidly tied to my job and my role in the family, was completely gone. I'd internalized their abandonment, and started to believe that I must have done something to deserve it. My savings disappeared at a terrifying rate. The emails from my bank about the mortgage went from polite reminders to something a lot less polite. Every time my phone buzzed, a spike of anxiety shot through me. Was it a bill collector? An eviction notice? The fear was constant. I sold my nice watch. I sold my record collection. I ate instant noodles for dinner more nights than I can count. The house was my only sanctuary, but it was also the source of all my stress. Losing it felt like it would be the final nail in the coffin. So, I fought. I took any job I could get. I delivered pizzas until 2 a.m., the smell of pepperoni permanently stuck to my car seats. I did freelance data entry, my eyes burning from staring at spreadsheets for pennies. I mowed lawns, assembled furniture, and walked dogs for my neighbors. It was humbling. It was exhausting. But with every dollar I earned, with every bill I managed to pay right on time, a tiny piece of my self-respect started to come back. It was a slow, painful process. I was rebuilding my life, brick by brick, but this time, the foundation was different. It wasn't built on what other people thought of me, it was built on my own resilience. I started going to the gym, not to look good, but just to feel strong again, to turn my anger and frustration into something productive. I reconnected with a couple of old college friends who didn't care what I did for a living. They just listened. They reminded me of who I was before all the drama. After about 18 months of this, I landed an interview. It was for a project manager position at a smaller company. It wasn't the same level as my old job, but it was stable. It was a real start. I walked into that interview with a different kind of confidence. It wasn't the polished confidence of my old life. It was quieter, harder earned. And I got the job. The relief was just indescribable. I could finally breathe. I started to rebuild my savings. I even started making little improvements to the house, a new coat of paint, planting a garden out back. The house became more than just a building, it was a monument to my survival. It was my safe space, built not just with money, but with sweat and tears and a level of grit I never knew I had. I was happy. Truly, peacefully happy. And my family was nowhere to be seen. I'd come to accept that. In fact, I preferred it. The silence I once found so deafening had become peaceful. Just as my life found its new, quiet rhythm, the ghosts of my past decided to show up. It started with a tentative Facebook friend request from my sister, Chloe. I ignored it. Then a text from my mom, "Heard you're doing well. So proud." I just stared at the message and let out a bitter laugh. Proud? Where was that pride when I was delivering pizzas in the pouring rain just to keep my house? The messages got more frequent. My brother, Mark, left a voicemail. "Hey man, long time no talk. We should catch up." They were testing the waters, circling like sharks that smell blood, or in this case, a steady paycheck. They started asking about my job, about my house. "How big is your place again?" Chloe texted. "Must be nice having all that space to yourself." A cold, heavy knot formed in my stomach. This wasn't about making up. This was about something else. Any naive hope I had that they felt bad was quickly replaced by suspicion. Family can have this sense of entitlement that just defies all logic, a belief that they have a right to what's yours just because you share some DNA. I was about to find out just how deep that entitlement ran. The final warning sign came from my dad. He called and, after some awkward small talk, he got right to it. "You know, your mother and I aren't getting any younger. Our finances, they're not what they used to be." He went on about how Mark was struggling again, how Chloe's husband might be facing layoffs. The subtext was as subtle as a sledgehammer: "You have something, and we need it." I kept my answers polite but distant. I gave them no openings, no invitations. I hoped they would get the message. I had built a wall around my new life, and they weren't welcome inside. But people driven by desperation and entitlement don't respect walls. They just see them as something to climb over. It's wild how fast relationships can change when money gets involved, isn't it? Have you ever been in a situation where family suddenly started treating you differently because of your financial situation? Let me know your story in the comments. I read every single one. I came home from work on a Thursday. It had been a good day. I just closed out a major project. I was thinking about ordering a pizza to celebrate. The irony was not lost on me. As I pulled into my driveway, I saw a familiar, beat-up van parked on the street. It was Mark's. My heart started hammering against my ribs. I walked up my own front path with this awful sense of dread. The front door, which I knew I had locked, was slightly ajar. I pushed it open. And there they were. My mother was in my kitchen, opening my cabinets. My father was in my living room, looking at the walls as if he were measuring them with his eyes. And Mark and Chloe were carrying a cardboard box filled with kitchen junk into my house. The scene was so bizarre, so completely audacious, that for a second I couldn't even speak. It was like I'd walked into an alternate reality where my home was just some vacant property they were moving into. They hadn't even seen me standing there. "The couch can go against this wall," my father said, pointing. "And the TV over there." "This kitchen is so much bigger than ours, Mom," Chloe said, with this little note of glee in her voice. "We can actually all fit in here for the holidays." Holidays. The same holidays they'd shut me out of for 2 years. I finally found my voice. It came out as a low growl. "What are you doing?" They all froze. 4 pairs of eyes turned to me, and not one of them had a trace of shame. They looked at me like I was the one interrupting. My mother was the first to speak, wiping her hands on a dish towel that wasn't hers. "Oh, sweetheart, you're home early. We were just getting things settled in." "Settled?" I repeated, my voice getting stronger, colder. "What are you talking about? How did you even get in?" Chloe gestured with a spatula she'd taken from my drawer. "Mark found the spare key you used to hide under the fake rock. We figured you wouldn't have moved it." She said it so casually, as if finding a key was an open invitation. "We're family," my father said, stepping forward, putting on that voice he uses when he expects to be obeyed. "And family helps each other. We've fallen on hard times. You have this big house all to yourself. It's only fair." "Help you?" I was stunned. "Help you? Where were you when I needed help?" When I was losing this house? When I was eating instant noodles for a month straight? I didn't hear from any of you for 2 years. My mother just waved a hand dismissively. Oh, don't be so dramatic. We knew you'd land on your feet. We were giving you space. We had our own problems to deal with. But now that my problems are solved, my house can solve yours? Is that it? I asked, my voice shaking with a rage I had never felt in my life. You owe us, Mark grunted, dropping a box on the floor. I helped you move in here, remember? And all the money Dad gave you for the down payment. He gave me $5,000. I have lent you, Mark, more than double that over the years and never saw a penny back. This isn't about fairness. This is about you seeing I'm stable again and deciding you're entitled to a piece of it. My mother started to cry, the classic move. How can you be so selfish? After everything we did for you? We raised you. We gave you a home. And now you deny us one when we need it most? This house is more than you need. We can all live here together. It'll be just like old times. Just like old times. The words hung in the air like poison. They didn't want the old times when I was struggling. They wanted the old times when I was their personal ATM. The gaslighting was just breathtaking. They had completely rewritten history to make themselves the victims and me the ungrateful villain. They genuinely believed they were right. No, I said, the word was crystal clear. No. You are not moving in here. You all need to take your box and get out of my house. Now. My father's face turned purple. Don't you take that tone with me. We are your family. We are not going anywhere. And that's when I knew. There was no reasoning with them. They were not guests who had overstayed their welcome. In their minds, they had a right to be here. And as they stood there, defiant, in the middle of the sanctuary I had fought and bled for, I realized they had left me with only one option. My hand was shaking as I pulled out my phone. My heart was pounding. I was about to do something that felt final, like I was severing a tie that, if I was being honest, was already dead. What are you doing? Chloe sneered. Calling for backup? I'm calling the police, I said, and my voice was eerily calm. The air in the room just changed. The entitlement vanished, replaced by shock and then pure rage. You wouldn't, my mother whispered, her face pale. You wouldn't do that to your own mother. You are trespassing, I said, my thumb hovering over the call button. You came into my home without permission, and you are refusing to leave. I've asked you to go. This is the last time. Get out, or I'm calling 911. My father took a threatening step towards me. You put that phone down. You are making a huge mistake. But I could see it in their eyes. They knew I wasn't bluffing. The cold finality in my voice must have scared them. For the first time, they weren't in control. I was. Mark grabbed their box. Chloe snatched her purse, her face a mask of pure contempt. My mother just stood there, shaking her head, muttering, I can't believe you would do this to us. You did this to yourselves, I said, my voice breaking a little. You abandoned me. This is an invasion. They shuffled out the door, looking defeated and angry. As they loaded their box back into the van, my father turned and pointed a finger at me. You are no longer our son. You have destroyed this family. No, I said, holding the door. You just destroyed the illusion of one. And I shut the door on their shocked faces, and I locked the deadbolt. The click of that lock was the loudest sound I had ever heard. I just leaned against the door and slid to the floor, the adrenaline draining out of me, leaving me feeling hollow and shaky. I didn't actually have to make the call, but the threat was enough. It was a line crossed, and there was no going back. The silence that came after was different. This silence was mine. It was the sound of peace, of safety, of a boundary that was finally, painfully, drawn. Drawing a line with family is one of the hardest things anyone can do. If you're finding value in this story and want to see more content about setting boundaries and reclaiming your life, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. It really helps the channel more than you know. The days that followed were filled with the toxic fallout I expected. Angry voicemails calling me every name in the book. Texts from random numbers, probably my siblings' friends, telling me what a horrible person I was. My mother sent a long, rambling email listing every sacrifice she'd ever made for me, ending with the line, "I hope you're happy in that big, empty house all alone." So, I did something I should have done 2 years earlier. I blocked their numbers. I blocked them on social media. I changed the locks. I needed a clean, final break. And was I happy? In a way, yeah. The grief was real. I was mourning the family I thought I had, the family I wished they could have been. That betrayal cut deep, and the scar will probably never fade completely. But underneath all that grief, there was this immense, profound sense of relief. The weight of their expectations, their judgment, their conditional love, it was just gone. My life is quiet now. My house isn't empty, it's filled with peace. It's filled with friends who actually celebrate my successes and support me when I fail. I've learned that family isn't always about blood. It's about who shows up. It's about who loves you for who you are, not for what you can give them. That whole experience taught me a brutal but necessary lesson about my own worth. My value isn't tied to my job or my bank account. And I'm not required to set myself on fire to keep other people warm, especially when they're the ones who handed me the matches. So to answer my mother's question, am I happy in this house alone? The answer is yes. Because I'm not really alone. I have myself. And for the first time in my life, I know that's enough. Protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's survival. And sometimes, that means closing and locking the door, even if the people on the other side are the ones who are supposed to have a key.